Impotent, ineffective, powerless. These are some of the terms the Supreme Court used for the state, in this case, various governments, over the hate speech matter. Mincing no words while making its observations, the top court said Fringe are making all sorts of nonsense statements and getting away with it because those in power to take action are silent. In fact, the two-judge bench of the Supreme Court remarked politicians use religion to attain power, and if those two are separated, the hate speeches will cease to exist. Citing examples of former Prime Ministers Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Atal Bihari Vajpayee, calling them as shrewd orators, the Supreme Court pointed out we are living in times when Fringe make defamatory speeches to vilify others. The apex court took particular objection to statements like "Go to Pakistan," saying these remarks demolish a person's dignity, which is totally unacceptable. For more on this, I have Ashwani Kumar Dubey, advocate of the Supreme Court, as well as Aditya Pratap, advocate, joining me on the broadcast. Thank you to both of you for joining us in Mirror Now, and good evening. Let me come to you, Aditya Pratap, first. Clearly, the Supreme Court taking a note of the same. Your first viewpoint about it.
Well, certainly, in fact, the Supreme Court has rightfully taken a strong stand against hate speech. We clearly have the Supreme Court, in fact, reiterated the penal provisions of Section 295A, Section 505, even Section 153A, because these are all the relevant statutory provisions which pertain to giving hate speeches, promoting ill will between religion, insulting religious feelings, and so on. And the Supreme Court very rightly said that somehow the standard of morality in today's times has clearly fallen. There was a time when people used to make intelligent speeches. Even when there was a point of dissent, historic speeches would be made, which would become a matter of record. But today, instead of a quality literary speech, people are resorting to crass hate speeches. In fact, if I'm permitted to digress from the topic, like even when it comes to comedy, like, you would have cultured comedy earlier. Today, you have all cuss words and abusive language. So the trouble is, what the Honorable Supreme Court has held is that today any person who has no political importance is a completely a fringe player. All he does to enter into the political limelight is make hate speeches. And the point is, the Supreme Court has rightfully come down because such speeches, they really close the door for any reasonable debate on any issue. So I do feel that Supreme Court, being the court of law under Article 141, its judgments are a matter of record and precedent. Its duty is to declare the law. And I believe the Supreme Court is doing the right thing in declaring the law, which is enshrined in Section 295, 505, as well as 153 of the IPC.
Right. As Aditya makes those significant points, Ashwani Kumar Dubey, let me take that point across to you. How do you read into it? Do you think this was definitely the need of the hour?
Yeah, of course, this is the need of the hour. And look, the time has come where the central government must make a legislation considering and examining the international laws relating to the hate speech, which is rumor mongering also. And the state governments should take appropriate, effective, stringent steps to control the hate speech, rumor mongering in order to secure rule of law, freedom of speech and expression, right to life, liberty and dignity, and the other fundamental. And now the point number 2 is the modern democracy should make a clear distinction between the freedom of expression and speech that tends to incite hatred against a public group or section of the society. What is happening now in election rallies, we often see that the people make hatred against our community. You see the social media platform, you see that hatred is against the communities, against the religious people. One tweet you do, then you will find that the people from different faiths will start targeting you, start making these kind of hatred statements. So the way society is dividing in this modern era, that needs to be controlled. And I think the Supreme Court, as has been said by certain directions have been passed, that the police officers should use their power under Section 129 of CRPC, dispersal of assembly by use of civil force, to deal with the circumstances where they think that a similar kind of crime or hate speech may be committed in their presence. And the 276th report of the Law Commission of India, which also says that the hate speech as an incitement to hatred, which is against a group of persons. So this is based on the race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religious belief and like. And the Supreme Court, being the custodian of Constitution, must ensure that the strict laws are passed And that too, the laws which have been passed in Tehseen Poonawala's case, the laws has been passed in Ashwani Upadhyay's case, the law which has been passed earlier, and Law Commission report should be looked into, and the time has come where the court must ask the central government to make a law, a stringent law. With the law we see, the Indian Penal Code, there is 153A, there is 295A, but those laws were made way back, more than 100 years back, which became less than, not significant as of now. We need the law which is able to tackle today's situation. That was made by the Britishers. Now we need that when we have a population of more than 135 crores. So we need a law which can bring the peace in the society. Yeah, over to you.
Aditya, how do you look at that statement? Do you think, legally speaking, how does one go forward to it? Of course, the top court has taken cognizance of the same, but do you think there are loopholes and challenges as well?
Is the question for me?
Yes, Aditya, go ahead.
Well, in my opinion, definitely, when the Supreme Court is, I think first and foremost, the most important thing we can expect from the Supreme Court is a well-reasoned and thought-out judgment, because ultimately, hate speeches are of innumerable kinds. People are very creative with words. They can come up. So the point is, the question is, would a specific law to target hate speech work? Now, the trouble is, if the government, the parliament can always enact a law to target a specific kind of crime. It can make a special law. And, but of course, would that law be a mere repetition of the provisions of the IPC? 505 is promoting, it's like a mob incitement, 505. 295 is insulting religious feelings and so on. So the government would have to get creative here. Probably the Law Commission can conduct a special study on this issue to understand how has hate speech traveled beyond the ambit of the IPC. So, but in the meantime, what I feel is what we actually need, even if the existing law is there, IPC is good enough, because what we need is better enforcement. You can come out with any law, but if the police has a poor conviction rate, if the police does not arrest, many fringe elements with rigor when they make such hate speeches, then you come out with 10 new laws, they will have no impact. We have the existing law. All the Supreme Court has to do is pass a well-defined judgment, and which declares the law, which encompasses even more categories of hate speech within its understandings, because the definitions are generic, and the police should implement it. Because the Indian police does not have a good
Mr. Dubey, do you think that was also going to be a challenge?
See, there are two committees were formed. The one committee was the Vishwanathan Committee in 2019, which proposed that Section 153C subclause B and Section 505 in IPC be included in order to commit and to deal with the offense on the ground of religion, race, caste, community, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, place of birth, residence, language, disability, or tribe. And if that proposed punishment and the proposed punishment of up to 2 years along with 5,000 fine, that was the Vishwanathan Committee, which was formed 2019. That suggestion, that recommendation, I don't know where has gone. Now thereafter, that Bajbarua Committee in 2014 was made, which proposed the amendment to Section 153C IPC, which is promoting or attempting to promote acts prejudicial to the human dignity, which was punishable by 5 years, was suggested to be punishable by 5 years and fine. And 509A, the word gesture act intended to insult a member of the particular race, the punishable by 3 years of final vote. And the country like India, with a massive population of diverse background and culture, subjects like hate speech become a complex issues to deal with it, as a difficult to differentiate between the free and hate speech, because there is a thin line between the Article 19(1)(a) and Article 19 subclause 2. And that is why the several factors needs to be considered, and why restraining speeches like the number of strong opinions, offenses to certain communities, the effect on the values of the dignity, liberty, equality. And there are laws, there are guidelines, there are judgments which has been passed. But now the need of the hour that there should be a law which can prevent these kind of actions. Yeah, over to you.
Right. On that note, I want to thank both of you for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective on this story. But for the moment, we leave it to that. Thank you very much once again. But on the other